Welcome, everyone, to the Insurance Perspectives podcast. This is part two of our series on Be Atomic. On today's show, we have Seth Zaremba
Hello.
and J.R. Bell.
Hi, everybody.
If you missed part one of our series on Be Atomic, please go back and give it a listen to hear more from Seth. What a fantastic way to kick off the year with that conversation. For part two, we turn to a mutual customer of HawkSoft and Be Atomics to learn how Be Atomic and Neon is used inside a real independent agency. J.R. Bell is the owner and advisor of Bell Insurance Solutions. He got his start in insurance in 2008 at Farmers Insurance. He quickly realized that he wanted to offer his customers options and left the captive world to join us in the greener pastures of independent agency life. In 2016, he opened up his agency, Bell Insurance Solutions, and joined HawkSoft in 2019, which we are grateful for your 5 years of commitment to us. We really appreciate that. Bell Insurance Solutions is located in Maryville, Illinois, on the Illinois side of St. Louis, and offers a variety of insurance in Metro East, Illinois, Missouri, Florida, and North Carolina. I was terrified of saying about half of those states because, as I mentioned before we started recording, I can no longer go to Idaho for mispronouncing Boise once. So I think I got through that. I am getting to know JR better as we have these conversations, and we talked a bit in part one. I'm super excited to learn a lot more because Seth teased us that your origin story is pretty exciting. I'm going to dive right in because we like to ask all of our mutual customers that come on the show the same set of 5 questions, so that way folks can listen to these episodes and make comparisons. But we have to set the stage, and one of the most powerful things about any business, any person, is their story. That's something that we believe very fundamentally here at HawkSoft, and so I want to start there. JR, could you tell us about your agency? How long have you been in business? How many people work there? How did you... Actually, let me rewind. Tell us about your agency and how you got started. How did you find yourself at Farmers Insurance in 2008? And then what kind of enlightened your perspective and made you come over to the independent side?
Okay. So I was working in the restaurant industry when I got out of college. I was a young father, had a single dad, had a young son. I was constantly having to leave his things to go into work at 4 p.m. and get off at 1 in the morning. And I wanted something different. I wanted something better. Wanted to provide better life for my kid. So, my family always told me I could sell the Pope of Church. So I thought insurance gave me some options because everybody I met and talked to would be a customer. I could sell them something one way or the other. So it was kind of a natural fit for me. So I got hooked up with a farmer's DM and went and got my license and started a scratch farmer's agency. It took me about 65 days to realize I needed something different.
Gotcha.
I said, hey, this is probably not going to go the way I anticipated in my head. I have no idea what I'm doing and I need help. So I went and I'm old school. I went and found an ad in the paper for independent agency looking for a producer. Met a great guy by the name of Greg. Took a little bit to get hired, but he was a fantastic mentor for me. I learned a lot under him. Worked there for about 7 years, got a great education. But at the end of the day, I still wanted more. You know what I mean? I wanted him and I, one of the things we disagreed on was technology and the future of the independent agency. He was definitely one of those older school guys and slow to change things. And, I was a young buck and I needed change and I needed it fast. So, my wife and I decided when we moved, it was time. And we opened our doors at our own agency in 2016. And I haven't looked back since.
That's fantastic. So when you started, was it just yourself? Were you solo in 2016,
It
or did you
was
bring people?
just me. I had a place, I had rent due on something and a mortgage and no clients. I walked away from all my clients and had to start from scratch again. So it was the second scariest thing I've ever done in my life. So
And now, how many people are with the agency?
so right now I've got two CSRs and one part-time producer.
Oh, fantastic. Does Bell Insurance Services specialize in a particular line of business? Do you heavier personal, commercial? How's your book look?
So right now we're about 50-50 personal and commercial on our book. Our goal here in the next 5 years is to be 80-20 commercial.
Mm, sure.
I want to get out of the personalized business. I feel like it's probably a dying market for us
Mm,
as they take away things. So that's kind of what we're focusing on. We're looking at narrowing a couple niches down to focus on those, but I would call us a generalist for the most part right now.
excellent. Um, so then, question I really like to ask. I love I love the motivation for getting into the space. Wanting to provide for a better life for your son. Um, but you've been in insurance for a long time, so there's a lot of different avenues for sales. What kept you in insurance, and what gets you excited about insurance?
I love this job because it's people.
Mm,
Like to me, the core of our job is to help our neighbor. You know what I mean? Like that's why
mm,
we're here. Somebody comes into my office, they have questions. It's not how cheap can you get this for me? It's what does this do for me?
mm,
How can this help me? You know what I mean?
mm,
What else do I need to help? So I love helping people. I love solving a problem. Um, and I like having more than one way to solve a problem.
yeah,
I think that's kind of how my brain works, you know?
totally.
If I was smart enough, I would have been an engineer, but I wasn't. So here I am.
No, I love that, and I think that Seth at the end of episode one, or part one of the series, really hit on the fact that uh, agents are like key people in their communities, key helpers,
Mhm.
and that's been true for every independent agent I've ever encountered. So I appreciate that. I want now that our audience understands who you are better. Um, I want to pivot our perspective and start looking at how you came to encounter Seth, how you came to encounter Be Atomic, and start to use Neon at the agency, because a lot of agencies, they might struggle, might feel like they're struggling, or feel like they can't get from they're at a point A and they really want to be at point B, and they can't figure out how to get there. And so I'd like us to help them understand those problems that are before them. So what were you looking for when you first encountered Be Atomic and Neon?
I was looking for a better solution than my current CRM. Like I mentioned on the first episode, I'm a technology guy. I've tried a handful of CRMs, a handful of AMSs, and I'm constantly looking for ways to improve our process.
Mhm,
I want to make things more efficient. Like everybody else out there, I struggle to hire people, hire quality people, and retain them. It's a very tough market, so I recognize that I'm going to have to find ways to automate as much as possible if I want to grow
mm,
and reach our growth goals. So um, that was always what I'm looking for. I'm always looking for how can I make this better? This works, but how else can it be better? How else can I make it easier for my staff so we can do more things? And that's what has been driving me since day one.
yeah. So then, what made Neon stand out as the better solution?
The biggest thing Neon gives me is it gives me a core set of functions that says, "Hey, I can integrate with your management system. We built these things out. Here's the basics of what you do. And then if you want to make it more efficient, you want to customize it for your process, here's some things that you can do, and here's how we can help do those." And that was the biggest driver for me. I think the way Seth thinks about it and the way they broke down CSRs do 22 functions. That's what they do. You know what I mean? Producers do five. Like this is what you're doing inside your agency every day.
Mhm,
And when you sit down and you think about that, and you realize, yeah, all we're doing. We're doing that over and over and over again. And when you start to think about it from that perspective, say, okay, now I need to get a task done. We're always thinking about how an individual client brings us challenges, things like that, but that's not the norm. You know what I mean? Like, here's the task. We need to do the task. So how can we do that more efficiently? So once you start to think about it that way and you break it down, Neon makes a huge amount of sense, the way they present it, the way they help you do it.
Hmm.
And then it allowed me to go in and say, okay, now I'm going to put the JR touch on it
Yeah.
and make it mine. And that
Yeah.
that's that was the biggest thing to me, because my other CRM didn't let me do that.
Hmm.
They were great. They did some things really well, but it just wasn't enough. Just I
Yeah.
needed more, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that um, agencies and individuals that persevere and make the independent agency channel their home, choice is really key to them. And so there's going to be friction when you restrict that choice. It took you only 65 days as a farmer's agent to be like, I need choice. And that's been the commitment ever since. And so I can definitely understand when you're looking at a system and you're like, oh, they have their solution, but it doesn't account for the nuance in my approach. There's no room for JR in their approach. And so what it sounds like is that Neon gives you the data and the perspective to understand how your approach is and isn't working, and then also gives you the freedom to adjust accordingly within your special, unique JR-ness.
100%. 100%. And being able to look at that data and say, okay, well, here's what my staff's doing.
Mm,
A prime example is I hired a virtual assistant. We ran him for 90 days. I went back and looked at the data, looked at what we were having him do, and realized this isn't working.
mm,
So we let that VA go, and we're pivoting now to something, and now we're doing Neon's VA inside there, and focusing on, okay, we're going to have them do these tasks only, and we're going to start there, and we're going to see what that does. You know what
yeah,
I mean? But having that data available to me allowed me to make that decision so much faster as an agency owner.
yeah,
Had I not had that, I probably would have dealt with that VA for another 6 months and spent all that money and wasted all that time before we were able to make that choice.
yeah. Um, I'm gonna take us on a slight tangent because I think this is actually a really important aspect of the change making that the Be Atomic is leading. And so, Seth, I want to bring you in to talk about this idea, this kind of situation that JR experienced. He was utilizing a virtual assistant. It's a very common practice in our space. We talk in part one about how hiring is difficult. Virtual assistants and staffing companies offer a solution that works for agencies. But you have a very interesting perspective, a data driven perspective that I'd love to give you an opportunity to talk a little bit about. So at Be Atomic, what have you seen? What observations do you have about the VA space?
Yeah, it's interesting. So using JR as an example, think of it this way, and this is what our data shows, regardless of agency, across all agencies, is what we're seeing. For every $100,000 of payroll that an agency has in service, 65,000 of it goes to 7 processes.
Mm,
That's it. So there's 7 things that happen in high volume and repetition that take up most of our payroll, and these are just processing. And so we're dedicating CSRs and VAs to these repetitive processes, which are just monkey see, monkey do, enter in and go. And so we took that approach and said, listen. What are the most valuable things a CSR should do? There's really 5 things a CSR should be doing all day, and they're high value to the agency. It's talking to customers, claims, renewals, book rolls, things where our consulting, our expertise, and that which makes us an independent agency stand out.
hmm
You do need VAs. So VAs should be closely assisting them where you need system access. Hey, I need to be in HawkSoft to do an Accord app, or I need to get into there to do something. That's where VAs do really well. But for the rest of it, these 7 processes, nobody should be doing those on any kind of hourly or monthly basis. And so our per transaction model says, hey,
mm,
if we scale all our agencies together, and we standardize those 7 processes, we can lower the cost per transaction scale wise cheaper than any one agency could on their own. And what's crazy about that, Kenny, is it's not just small to medium sized independent agencies. We're now working with top 5 brokers who have the same problem.
Yeah.
And so we don't ever give any thought to being independent on paper clips. Like, hey, I need to design my own paper clip. No, because the paper clip is a standardized process for paper, and so are these
Hmm.
processes. So that idea that you have highly trained, skilled CSRs working on 5 valuable things, money. If you
Hmm.
need a VA to support them, do it, and you're going to pay monthly for those. But for everything else, our per transaction service center can save you 30 to 70% on cost of service,
Hmm.
and it can free your people up to actually help the customer, which is
Yeah.
what they should be doing all day long.
Yeah, absolutely. Um, I we had this conversation a few months ago when you kind of like broke my brain going through the details on that. I was just like, oh dang, that is right. Um, I try
Makes a
not
lot of
to.
sense, doesn't it?
I try not to. I'm not very good at hiding my bias in conversations, but I think that's a very important way to be thinking about things, because I think that oftentimes we let technology. This is a soapbox I get on a lot. We let technology drive um, what we think is important to do instead of reversing it and saying the data and my experience, my process tells me these are the important things to do. How do we bring technology to bear to it? And so I think it's a really important paradigm shift, and I'm glad that there's a champion like Be Atomic out there that is pushing and forcing that data driven conversation, um, because I think it eliminates to a certain degree that FOMO that drives a lot of tech sales, the fear of missing out, where we're not saying like, oh hey, I'm a super successful agent because I use this technology. It's like, well, I'm a successful agent because I know my processes and I know what works and I know what doesn't work for my market, and this technology helps me understand that. It's something that JR could do with a pad of paper and a pencil. It would take an infinitely longer amount of time,
Way longer.
way longer. But it is one of those things where it's like it's agent first. It's process oriented. I'm a huge fan of that type of technology. I'll get off my soapbox for now. Um, so there's a lot. Every time I see the Neon platform, there's a new feature, and there's a lot inside that platform for what it can help your agency do. So, Jr., I want to put the spotlight back on you. What can Bell Insurance Solutions do now with Neon that you couldn't do before you implemented the platform?
I think my favorite thing that we can do right now is I can do a personalized renewal in under 3 touches. We get to download from HawkSoft. My staff takes one look at it. They determine if it meets our criteria to shop it. They go to Neon. The renewal case is already in there. It's already been communicating with the customer for the last 35 to 40 days before we even got the renewal. We've sent an email out to the customer. We've sent a renewal questionnaire out to them. We've sent a text message to them. Like these things have already been done before my CSR even knows there's a renewal. So
Mm,
those processes are done. Once she gets the renewal, she looks at it and goes, okay, does this meet my criteria for shopping? She goes over to Neon, she clicks 2 buttons, and then that sets the process in motion. If we're shopping it, the customer gets an email, says, hey, we've got it. We're looking at it. We're going to do our due diligence. If we're not, it closes the case and the customer gets an email 3 weeks before the renewal. It says, hey,
mm,
you still have a great fit. Got any questions? Let us know. So it allows me to time everything perfectly.
yeah,
So things aren't going to the customer when they're not supposed to. The customer thinks they're getting emails from us, and my CSR spent 3 minutes on it
yeah. And it's
versus
also,
an hour or three.
yeah, you're saving. This is I'm gonna hop back on my soapbox. Someone should really take it away. Um, I think that as technology, as insurtech people, we we've done a lot of the big advances where we're saving days of work, we're saving hours of work, and it's about refining the process now, where we're shaving minutes and seconds off of things because you end up doing those so frequently that in shaving those seconds off, you are saving hours every year, you're saving days every year.
Hmm.
And so it sounds like Neon is enabling you to like really tune that in and say like, oh, okay, this is the process that works for my customers. This is the timing that works. I can do this. It's going to save me hours.
I lost a full-time staff person right after we went on Neon. Awesome staff person. She went to a bigger agency that could pay
Mm,
her more. You know what I mean?
mm-hmm,
I'm sure I'm not alone in experiencing that. We made the decision not to replace her.
mm,
We said we're going to figure this out and we're going to do it. It wasn't bit without its bumps. It's been a little rough. I put in a lot more hours, especially in the beginning, to get
mm-hmm.
Neon to where I needed it, but um, we're okay. You know what I mean? I've
Yeah,
saved that money and we're okay.
yeah, I love that, and it's about scaling, um, and not replacing people, but being able to scale without maybe
Hmm.
the old adage of like 1,000 clients, a new person, that type of thing, where you had to say like, oh, if my book is this size, I need this number of people, because that's not true on the direct writer side. They have this whole mechanism behind them where one person can maybe poorly service a more than a single independent agent could, but as technology comes to bear, it levels the playing field. It sounds like.
Oh, for sure.
Now, in part one, we grilled Seth on his perspective on the hardships of working with independent agents. Um, Turns out it's not too hard. There are things that we're working on, change management and whatnot. Um, but in the pursuit of fair play, we like to flip it over now and give JR a chance in the hot seat to maybe start a fight. We'll see. It's my goal. One of these
Let's
days
go.
I'll do it. Um, so we this our podcast is about dialogue, and so with respect to that, I want to give JR an opportunity um, to provide constructive feedback to be atomic. But the one caveat I like to give everybody is price is a boring answer. In an ideal world, all of this technology would be free, um, and it does pay for itself. But price is a boring option. So let's set that aside. If you could change one thing about Be Atomic or Neon, what would that be, JR?
It would be the way their policies come through right now.
Mm,
So I will tell you, Neon is about as responsive as HawkSoft is. They are quick to answer your questions. They're quick to respond, and if they can put a solve in, they will put a solve in very fast. Which is one of the things I love because you guys are on the same page with that. But there's definitely the way their policies pull over.
mm,
It's got to map a little differently, and there's been some frustration there. We've talked with him. I've talked to his team a lot and said, "Hey, you guys are just looking at this wrong. We need to look at it this way." So they take that feedback back, and they talk to the dev team about what they need to do to make adjustments, and they make some changes. So, but that's probably my biggest frustration, especially with my staff, because we got to make sure we're pulling the right policy and
mm.
attaching it to the service work, and sometimes it's challenging.
Sure. I think that's fair. That's something that HawkSoft will hear a lot, because that is the maybe the most difficult thing about working in the independent agency channel in general is the level of freedom at which agencies operate. It can be hard to kind of fit a display to everyone's needs. We definitely get
Hmm.
feedback like that a lot at HawkSoft. Like, hey, could this be here? And we'll get it from half our customers, and then we'll change it, and the other half will be like, hey, put that back.
What'd you
Um,
do?
yeah, toggle switches. I am the biggest fan of toggle switches. The half that want it can have it. The half that don't need it. Um,
Right.
I think it's pretty good. It's as close to a fight as we've probably come. Um, and I think part of the reason we do this is we want people to no solution is going to be perfect for every agency, and that's why we ask these questions, just to demonstrate that everything is a work in progress. HawkSoft is a work in progress. We have a Be Atomic has an amazing dev team. Huge fan of working with Anna, your chief product officer.
Oh, yeah. It's awesome.
Fantastic team over there. So I'm confident that JR they'll sort that out for you. Now
So am I.
we'll we'll make sure that Seth doesn't go and turn off your service with our last question for you here. So, um, inclusive of features, workflows, other tangible benefits. I would love to know, how would you describe the value that Be Atomic and Neon bring to Bell Insurance Solutions?
I don't think I could quantify it enough.
Mm,
Like I mentioned in episode one, it was it's the first piece of technology that my wife has thanked me for purchasing outside of her iPhone. You know what I mean? Like it's the only thing that she's agreed on spending money on, and my
mm,
wife hates to spend money. It changed everything for us. It's finally allowed me to see the things I want to do and do them. You know
mm,
what I mean? It's not sometimes it's not a quick process. I've had to learn some things, but their platform with Salesforce allows me to learn some things. They've been fantastic about guiding me along the way.
mhm,
I've had lots of conversations with his support team and dev team about, hey, how can I do this? What if I want to do this? And they're like, and we talk through it, and they show me some things, and we rock and roll, and it really has solidified my my quest for automation.
mm,
You know what I mean? I'm constantly making adjustments to our processes, small ones, to where we touch our clients less, but they get touched from us more.
yeah,
And that was my goal. I want to be in front of my clients more, but I don't have the time to do it. How do I do it?
yeah.
And Neon has definitely allowed me to achieve that goal.
Wow, I love that. Um, and I think that's the testament that any technology provider would hope to receive from our customers, is that we are worth the money you spend on us. Um, I definitely, it's this double-edged sword of knowing a lot of insurance agency owners very well. Is I almost feel bad to send them an invoice. It's just like, you're running a business, you're doing a great thing for your community. I wish that, we could just provide this to you, but it sounds like that investment you make in Neon is absolutely worth it.
JR is a special guy. So we both were on a former AMS that went belly up and was killed by an industry giant. And so we were born from this frustration. We knew the
Mm,
power of Salesforce, but
mm,
we wanted to see it. So we had that common experience of like, hey, someone should do something with this. Come to
mhm,
find out, we were both having that. I was crazy enough or dumb enough to do something about it, but we have that DNA. So he's just wired that way. But I would say two things. Um, People ask me like what size agencies we work with. And
mhm,
JR is like, I always tell people like that's the dumbest question you could ask me, because working with JR and his team, they're the smartest, most capable, future focused agencies. And JR, you said you had 4 or 5 people. It's like, so this terrible question investors and technology people all ask, like, what size agency? It's like, I work with freaking JR Bell, and he's a witch, and he has thoughts that large agencies don't have. He has the autonomy to do it. He's getting results that do it. And so I think he epitomizes the idea that any agency of any size can
mm,
do this thing, and he embodies that, which is why we recommended him. The second thing I'll
yeah.
say about JR is I get asked all the time, what kind of agencies use Neon, and I always say the same thing: agents who can do math,
Mm.
because it's just math. JR's agency does about 6,500 things a year. Each one of them has a cost. We show him the cost, and his mind just does the math on how we can do it. And so
Mhm,
JR is special in that he has that mindset, but he embodies what I think is so amazing about independent agents is you control your shop, you're independent. And our systems, HawkSoft and Neon, have to be there, customizable
mhm,
enough, flexible enough, because you're in Illinois, because you write this class of business, or because you want to do this thing. And yeah, he's the best in class regardless of size, because he thinks about the math, and the math always wins, and math doesn't lie.
yeah,
You
yeah,
got to be able to see it, like
mhm,
everything's a task. I appreciate those kind words. But you just got to understand where you want to go. You know what I mean? You got to have a focus. What do I want to do? What do I want to achieve? And what's standing in my way?
mm,
So, what are the three biggest obstacles in my way, and how do I move them? you
mhm,
know and when money talks, and we are not a rich agency by any means, you know what I mean. I got three young kids I got to deal with, so I need as much of the extra money as I can get. I've got to find a way to automate it you know
yeah,
and that's just Be it Neon allows me to do it on my terms. And I
Yeah.
think that's the biggest thing I can tell any agency. It's not on Seth terms, it's not on HawkSoft terms. It is on my terms. And if there's something I can't do, I call them and say, I need to do this. How do we make it happen? I
Yeah.
need you to solve this for me, and let's find a workaround. And we have. There hasn't been anything I haven't been able to solve yet.
Yeah. I love that.
So his team is phenomenal. I'm telling you, their response is they are just as responsive, if not more than HawkSoft. They are
Mhm.
phenomenal to work with. They're as dedicated, and they want your success.
Yeah. Yeah, that absolutely comes through in the interactions I've been fortunate enough to have with Seth and his team. I definitely echo those words from a business perspective. Biotomic's fantastic to partner with. Um, Anyone doing Oppo research by listening to our podcast, definitely reach out to Seth and get working on that partnership. Although I think Seth's already done all the hard work, connects with everybody, but still, I think this nice moment of kumbaya is a great place for us to close this out. Um, I always enjoy these conversations. Honestly, any excuse to meet a new agency owner and talk with Seth, it is an absolute win-win on my side. I would like to thank J.R. Bell of Bell Insurance Solutions for joining us today and giving his perspective on what it's like to use Neon at a real independent agency. Seth, thank you so much for joining us and giving us the data driven perspective that is so needed in our industry. Thank you for watching today's episode. Click the video description below to learn more about our guests and to view the latest podcast episode as well as other content from HawkSoft. We appreciate you watching and hope you join us next time on the Insurance Perspectives podcast. Thank you.